I am so excited to meet you, Dr. Salles. First and foremost, I'm Chiney Ogwumike, a member of the Los Angeles Sparks, and also work for ESPN. But I'm so excited to meet you because it's so nice to meet another Stanford sister, part of Nerd
Yes.
Nation. I was doing my research on you, and like I feel like it's vice versa because you're the queen of research. Learning about your story has been so inspiring. So before we get to learning more about you, I just wanted to say on behalf of the athletic community, thank you so much for all the great work you're doing, just period, not in just regards to the times we're in now. It's just your entire life story has just been tremendous. What you've done for, academia and then also for medicine has been, and then on top of it, you're a woman, you know what I mean? We out here, women of color. So you're holding it down. So I just want to say thank you because a lot of times as athletes, people put us on pedestals like celebrities or superheroes. But you guys, I think right now the times show that you guys are truly the real heroes out there. And I'm just glad we get to appreciate you. So thank you so much for joining me.
Well, that is super kind. Thank you so much. It's really lovely to meet you. I'm a huge basketball fan.
There you
You're the
go.
closest I've ever come to meeting someone really fancy. So,
Oh wow. Well, I can't wait. Once all this stuff is hopefully fingers crossed over, you've got to come to an LA Sparks game.
oh my God,
I
I would
know
love to.
I know you went to USC, am I correct?
I did.
So that's awesome. Yes, we're gonna definitely coordinate that if that's cool with you.
That would be amazing.
Awesome, perfect. Well, just to give a little background and bio to what I was alluding to, your educational history is just like ridiculous. I'm not gonna lie, it's ridiculous. So you graduated with a BS in biomedical engineering and a BA in French from USC. We'll forgive you for that for the moment because then you got your MD from Stanford, and then also you did your residency in general surgery from Stanford, and then on top of it, you got a PhD in social psychology. So you've been in school, I would assume most of your life.
Absolutely.
You finally reclaimed your life after achieving all of that.
Yes, I love that terminology. Yes.
But you have a really amazing journey because it started, not here in the States. It started back in your home country of Iran. I understand what it's like to be raised in an international household. My family's Nigerian. I'm the first generation born and raised here in the States, along with my three sisters. And I think the reason why I'm so excited to talk to you is because you're such an advocate for women and also pushing boundaries. So, could you just share what your journey has been from Iran all the way to the States? I think you were declared as citizen officially like at the age of 21. So you really climbed every hurdle and every obstacle to put yourself in a position to succeed in ways that I have like I can't do it. You've been committed. You've been amazing.
Well, I mean, I think you have done more than I have probably in terms of commitment and achievement. But yeah, I started. So I was born in Iran, and my mom and I moved to the United States when I was 5, and we kind of bounced around a little bit, but we landed in Iowa, which is where all immigrants go. And um, we were there for about 6 years while my mom got her PhD, and it was just the two of us. I don't have any siblings, and my father remained behind in Iran. So she got her PhD and then she did her postdoc there as well. And then we moved to California, which seemed glamorous, but we actually landed in a small town called Lompoc.
Oh wow.
Which, yeah, it's about an hour north of Santa Barbara. There's an Air Force base. That's about
That's
what
about
it's
it.
known for. Yeah. But that was lovely. We were there for a few years, and then we moved to Gilroy, where my mother lives now, another metropolis. So that's about an hour south of where I am now. I'm living in Menlo Park, very close to Stanford. Anyway, so then I was there for high school, and then I went, as you mentioned, to USC for college, and then back to the Bay Area for med school, and then I absolutely loved Stanford, so I stayed for 13 years doing my MD and my PhD and my residency, and then I left for a few years and worked in St. Louis, and then I moved back here last year.
So what years were you at Stanford specifically?
2002 to 2015.
We were there at the same time.
Oh my goodness.
I was there from 2010 to 2014.
Yep, I was there that whole time. So 2010 to 2012, I was still doing my PhD, so I actually was even on the main campus too. Yeah.
I'm sure maybe like we biked past each other around.
Probably.
That's the mode of travel. It's amazing to hear that your mother also got a PhD because my mom just got a PhD in education. And education, I think, as you know, in international households, Education is number one. So that's really cool. I was just wondering, considering all of your extensive education, what would you consider the highlights of your academic experience, whether it's at Stanford or studying medicine?
Gosh, that's a great question. I think the two things that of all the things that I did in terms of training, the two things I liked the most or appreciated the most were the MD and then the PhD, but for different reasons. When I came to Stanford for medical school, I was a very high stress type person. I had really put a lot of strain on myself in college. I had worked 3 jobs pretty much the whole time I was there to try to support myself, and was just like, if I didn't get the top score in a class, I was mad at myself, like very crazy level. And Stanford, the medical school at that time, everything was pass fail. Every single class was just pass or fail. And that really liberated me to think about the world at large and start exploring other things. So I started doing yoga, which I've been doing for almost 20 years. I did triathlon. I helped run a free clinic. I did all these other things because I didn't have to worry about whether I was going to get a 99 or whatever on a test. So that was a really great experience. And then the PhD, I've just learned so much that I didn't know before. Having been an engineer as an undergrad, I didn't know a lot about social science at all. And so stepping into that world of education and psychology and trying to understand how people think and how our environment affects our behavior was really fascinating for me and set me on a different path that I really enjoyed being on.
Yeah, now that we're like in unprecedented times, I feel like your experience now is being shaped by what we're going through, right? Like with the pandemic, how would you have seen, or how do you see medicine reacting to the adverse situations we're in? Like, I know everyone's rallying. Us having this common love of sports, we understand the value of teamwork and work ethic, and you guys have really been just the real, like I said, heroes, doing the stuff that we literally aren't trained in, probably can't even imagine doing. Like my little sister is a pre-med major. She actually just got accepted into medical school. She's likely to go to medical school in the fall. And I'm just like looking at her in awe because I was like, oh my gosh, like I could never do that. And so I just think it's really special to see people that are doing the things that are so necessary. So how would you say, medicine has reacted to the situation we're in, and how have you seen people rally through this COVID-19 times?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the medical community has been so strong through all of this. I mean, we're nurses, physicians, respiratory therapists, all of us are people who do what we do because we want to try to help people. Fundamentally, that's at our core. And it's, for most of us, the highest value that we have, even higher than valuing our own health. So it's not surprising to me that people have really sacrificed so much to try to take care of patients. I think there's been a really big toll, though, for all of that. We've never seen people dying in the numbers that we're seeing now. And we've never had to be at the bedside of a patient who's dying with their family not anywhere around, and trying to be the conduit between the family and the patient through a little screen, a cell phone screen. That's new and a very challenging experience. So I think what I worry about is the long-term consequences for everyone. Obviously, this pandemic has affected everyone in so many ways, and it's mostly not been positive. But especially for the healthcare workers, I really worry about the strain of trying to do things we really can't do. A phone is not sufficient for communication between someone who's dying and their family. It just isn't. And we don't have medications to treat this virus. We don't have the tools that we really need to win this battle. So all of that is very challenging.
As you said, there's so many problems when it comes to the coronavirus and just trying to keep everyone in positive spirits. And one reason I'm really excited to talk to you, Dr. Salles, is because you have been a part of the solution. And you are young and thriving. And as I heard you said earlier, athlete, you're an athlete, triathlon, like I can't run that long. Mine are little sprints, okay? But you've been a part of the solution. I know you mentioned yoga as well. How have you really tried to reinvigorate the doctors that might be in a really stressful state of mind as they're dealing with the situation in hospitals and with families and all those differences?
Yeah, when the shelter-in-place order took hold in California, well, it took hold in the Bay Area before even the state of California. I was like everyone else, like taken aback and not sure what life was going to be like. And it was very unsettling. And it was very hard to focus on the work that I needed to do. And I turned to yoga because it's always been a respite for me. It's a way to be active and to not be so much in my head. And so I started doing more yoga, and then I thought maybe like I'll just share it with people. So I started posting different poses on my Twitter page, and then people seem to like it. I do some, unusual things like some one-armed handstands and things that people were like, wow. I mean, not unsupported, like up a brown wall in a door frame. Like I'm not that. I'm not
that's more than most people.
Anyway, so then people kind of got into that, and then people started asking me if I would teach a class, and so I started teaching a free class on the weekend. So every weekend I teach a class, and that's been really fun to do. And I think, it's funny. A couple of people said to me that my Twitter is their yoga because they're like, they don't do it themselves, but they like seeing my posts. So I'm happy to serve in that way. That's fine.
That sort of reminds me of all these quarantine DJs. Like the quarantine DJs, that's my party. You know what I mean? I'm participating in that party. So I totally get that energy. And I think it's a beautiful thing that you're doing. As an athlete myself, I'm trying to stay creative with how I train. It's so hard because, going to gyms, like a lot of the things we just took for granted, just working out with our friends and just touching a ball. Like we don't think the same way now just because of the situation our country's in. How do you think we're going to move forward, at least hopefully for the better, given what we've just experienced as a collective?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got some really significant challenges ahead of us, right? We don't have, as I mentioned, any treatment for the disease, and we don't have a vaccine, but people can't just stay at home forever. There are major economic consequences in addition to mental health consequences, right? We are social creatures, and we're being, really deprived of that. Yes, we can do Zoom calls with our friends, but that's not the same, right? It's insufficient. So I think we're going to enter now into this period where people are going to experiment with, okay, what if we reopen some services, for example? What if we loosen restrictions in these particular ways? What will the consequences be? And we'll just have to watch and see what happens with case numbers and infections. And then if it starts to get bad, then we're going to have to lock back down again. And I think we're going to be in this kind of accordion for some time until we either have a treatment or a vaccine. And nobody really knows. I mean, I know people like to say it's going to be 12 months or 18 months. I would love to believe that.
Right.
I'm not convinced. So I think we have to be mentally prepared for this going on for a period of time. And I think, it is really important to stay fit and find other things to do. Just like you mentioned, like it's easy to think, well, I'm just going to sit on my couch and watch Netflix, which kudos to you if you can, because I cannot concentrate anymore. But I just get so distracted. But this is actually a decent time to start developing your own practice of some kind that's going to be about mindfulness and taking care of yourself. So I think that's important. Other things in terms of moving forward that I think about are, we've obviously all adapted to Zoom calls as part of the way that we meet people at work and socially. I think socially we'd all love to not do that. But for work, if we can keep some of those practices, that will enable more flexibility for people who have responsibilities in their home, whether that's men or women or any gender. There are a lot of things that need to be done during the daytime, like taking different people to different appointments or whatever. And our work structure in this country has been so rigid that you have to be physically present to count. And I think what we're seeing is you maybe don't always have to be physically present to count. Certainly some things. You can't fix a car without being at the auto shop, right? I can't probably do your surgery unless we're in the same place.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of other things that can be done remotely. And I really hope we can retain some of that to give people more flexibility.
I absolutely agree because I know I don't know if you have had Zooms with family back home in Iran, but I had a quarantine birthday. My grandma had a quarantine birthday. She just turned 84. My cousin did. And this is the first time that we all use Zoom to all connect across the globe. So it was really cool. And I was like, wow, like I never had experienced us all being together because it was physical. That's one little blessing in disguise. Two, I really thought my workouts had to be in the gym and I had to be with a coach. My best workouts have come in like a group of random people, which like it's been nice because I've sort of been incognito until people are like, wait, you're way taller than everyone else. Like, what do you do? I was like, oh, I play in the. They're like, oh wow. I was just like, oh no, there goes my anonymity. But it's been really great because I've done Zoom workouts, so I'm realizing that being creative during this time actually allows us to sort of have reclaim our lives a little bit. Like I don't have to be going 24/7 at 100 miles per hour. We can sort of meet people halfway. So I'm just curious also, what would you say? I know that a lot of people have something personal in which they've struggled with, for the NBA in our community, even like my teammate had coronavirus, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell. Rudy, I train with his trainer. Donovan is my family from the Adidas. We all somehow have a tie to this serious and scary thing. But I do think I love how society has really like rallied together and we're helping each other through it. What has been the most heartwarming moment that you've experienced through this time?
I think really one moment stands out to me quite a lot, and it was with a patient who I was taking care of when I was in New York. He's a patient who was on a ventilator, in the intensive care unit, so really quite sick. And at that time, he was requiring a lot of support through the ventilator. But he was alert, and so he was able to write notes. That's pretty unusual, but he was able to do that. And he had written to his nurse a note that said, "I'm not giving up." And this was like 2.5 weeks or so into his hospitalization. So, we think we're struggling, right? And this guy is actually fighting for his life and has a tube rammed down his throat to help him breathe and is stuck in this hospital bed. Can't see any of he's got 6 kids he can't see. And yet that's just spontaneously what he chose to share, was that he's not giving up. And actually I shared that on my Twitter, and then it was a popular tweet, and I shared back with him that I had done that, and like over 8,000 people had liked it. And I said, look, you've inspired so many people. And he wrote down, he was like gesturing like this between me and him, and he wrote down, "Together we can." And I was like, oh.
You know what that reminds me of? The Cheetah Girls. It's a song. "Together we can shoot the moon." I don't know if you know that movie, but that's like, maybe I'm showing my age. But that's so beautiful. Like, and it's those little things where people are so selfless that we can all just draw inspiration from. Oh my gosh, that just like, I have goosebumps just even thinking about it. And it just, everyone's dealing with their own forms of adversity, like mentally, physically, people with COVID-19, people without, people trying to manage and take care of those who are taking care of us. You know what I mean? I've dealt with injuries. I had right knee microfracture surgery, left Achilles surgery, and the hardest thing that has happened to me was like fighting back and believing that I could, be the same player that I was and even still get better. In sports, as athletes, we're used to dealing with adversity. We're used to losses, but we're not used to this situation. So how do you think sports sort of shakes out the next few months, given what we're all dealing with?
Oh, it's so hard, right? If you're talking about organized sports, I know people are debating now, should we resume games, but then not have any audience, not have fans allowed? And I don't know what you think, but that seems really displeasing. I don't know.
Awkward is the word.
Well, I mean, like I imagine, I've not been in your position, but I imagine part of your joy is the feedback from the crowd.
The energy.
Yeah. And so I don't know, but I think it'll be a long while before it seems safe and appropriate to have large groups of people together. So, what are our choices really? Is it to do that or to wait for another year or two or whatever? I mean, there's a reason that entertainment has such high value in our culture. It's because people need it. I mean, humor, sports, music. This is all part of what makes life, right?
Yes.
I wish I had an answer for you. I don't really know.
Yeah, I think we all want to be those people that can help people through this time, but I think safety comes first. We don't want to deprive people of the test that need it. And then at the same time, we don't want to put people at risk just for playing a game because society is bigger than sports, even though we love it. I think the part that we struggle with, and myself, I struggle with this a lot. It's sort of like the dichotomy between, all right, we go out, we wear gloves and we wear masks and we get curbside service, but then soon we're going to be on the court and sweating and breathing, and like, so mentally that's just been one of those things we're trying to understand, entering those risks. But at the same time, I think we know that we're in a position, we have this moral responsibility to hopefully uplift the same way you have a moral responsibility. It's just different. It's different. Ours is optional, yours is earned and respected at highest levels. But I think, regardless of everything going on, I just love that your story has truly like inspired myself. It's given us purpose, it gives us priorities. And I know as states sort of ease up on their, restrictions, it's very daunting and it's scary to think about, but it's necessary because we have to provide for others. What can people do during this time as like to kind of know what the boundaries are for themselves and their families, just so that we can feel a little bit more secure in how we move and the
Yeah.
decision making we have?
I mean, I think it's still for the foreseeable future going to be very prudent to wear a mask when you go out and to try to minimize your interactions with people you don't need to be interacting with. I think it still is going to make sense to try to not go to the grocery store, multiple times a week, to try to consolidate those types of outings. I think we've all learned a lot of lessons in the last couple of months, and I think we should try to continue to apply those as best we can moving forward, and have some gatherings if we get to the point where people think that's okay, but not big gatherings, like still keep it as small as you can to your core family members, maybe. I live alone, so I totally get what it's like to not have anyone around you. And we are human. But I think we have to still be cautious and still do frequent hand washing, wipe down things that have come into your home from the outside. All of those practices are still good, appropriate practices.
Yeah, I think we're worried about the gathering. I'm just even thinking about like, oh, what has happened with our gathering? So I have 3 sisters, 2 parents, so there's a total of 6 of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, even like moving forward, there's so many cool things that have sort of blossomed from this sort of like, planting a seed in the abyss, And my mom, for her birthday, we had one of those car parades, people were honking, and she was so surprised. And just like those are the moments that we really like, I think I'm holding on to through this. Just knowing that, okay, this is not where we want to be, but we still have found a way to make something beautiful out of, where we're at. So before we go, I just am curious, what is going to be the first thing you're going to do when hopefully everything gets eased up? I don't even know. I'm probably just going to go out to eat at restaurants, get all the food that I've been missing. LA is a great place for food. So is the Bay. But what is the first thing you're going to do once you can?
I really would love to get together with a lot of people.
You want to turn up?
That's what I just want to be able to see all my friends and loved ones together. My birthday actually was recent. And we didn't have, we were going to have a party, but then of course this happened. And so, I haven't had a gathering with loved ones like anybody else has, or like nobody else has in the last couple of months. It would be great to have just a nice party with like not 1,000 people, but like 20, 30
yeah,
people.
20 people.
Yes, I would love that.
Well, happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. And, you have, like I said earlier, you're just doing the work that we are so grateful for. And just to know that you're not only a doctor, just the upper echelon of academia, you're a success story, you're an international woman, you are everything, a member of Nerd Nation. Like,
yes,
it is fantastic to not only meet you, but also put your ticket on reserve so that you can come and see the Sparks once we get fans back in the arena.
Yes, I would love that so much.
Lovely. Well, take care. Stay safe. And again, thank you so much for all that you do. We are truly appreciative of everything.
Thank you so much. Hey, before you actually leave though, have you been watching The Last Dance?
Oh yes, of course. I've been
Okay.
watching it.
What, I mean, I know you're younger, so you didn't live through all of that, but what are your thoughts?
So it's funny. I thought everyone's like, oh, well, Michael said it himself. Y'all are gonna hate me after this. I'm like, I'm not hating you so far. I think it's funny because a lot of people also think, oh, he's snitching, he's telling a lot of crazy. These are the stories we want to hear. But I think it's really inspiring to see greatness in different forms, and even like the adversity, like even when people are assumed to be at the top, they're still struggling and going through their own personal things, and to see him push through that and be great at what he does, like as a hooper, I am so motivated. You can only be motivated. But honestly, I assume you've been able to watch some of it, if not most of it.
Yeah, when I got back, it started when I was in New York, and so I missed the first like 4 episodes or something. But that actually is the only TV I've been able to concentrate on. So I'm caught up now to whatever.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was born in 1980, so by the time they were starting to play really well, I was, alert to the world. I mean, I was not an adult, but I was paying attention. And we lived in Iowa, so our closest NBA team was the Chicago Bulls.
That's crazy.
So I became a fan immediately. And then I've just watched all of that, all those games with the Knicks. I mean, my poor mom watched so much basketball.
Really?
Oh yeah. Every game, every weekend we were watching. Every night that there was a game that we could get on the TV, we were watching. Then we moved to California, and it was like very hard to get the games, right?
Yeah.
But of course, there's such a big team that at least on the weekend games, they would always air the games. And I mean, that was a huge part of my youth. Actually, my room in my mom's house in Gilroy, I still have 2 MJ posters. Actually, one's Horace Grant, Pippen, and Jordan, and then the other one's just Jordan.
Yo, this is amazing. I love it. I love you, man.
No, I mean, it was a huge part of my life growing up. And so for me, it's like so much nostalgia, and then also just pure joy to like see what the conversations were in the background, and the drama. I mean, I knew a lot of people who hated him, right? A lot of people, because of jealousy and all this stuff. But even the guy I dated for like 6 years, he hates Michael Jordan, was a big Patrick Ewing Knicks fan. And even now he's like, I hate that guy. Why would I watch this documentary? And I was like,
that's what Patrick Ewing said. He's not watching it because he's like, I lived through this. I can't put myself through this again.
I get it. And it's been interesting to see like the Isaiah Thomas bits too, right?
Yes. I mean, and it's so funny because these are grown men, but they still like have these, hidden feelings that they're like, you know what? I respect this game, but hey,
Yeah, man, they are holding some grudges.
They are holding, and you know what, they try to make it seem like us women, we are the only ones that hold grudges. Y'all out here holding grudges too.
They do it more. Yes. Men are like unforgiving.
And then you saw what happened with Tony Kukoc. I'm like talking about grudges. Like
that was some petty stuff. I thought that they're like gonna harass this guy at the Olympics.
Super petty.
Yeah. That's bizarre, but I mean, I am loving it.
I'm loving it too. Like that's been the only time this whole quarantine I was like, I must be here at this time to watch this live. But unlike you, I've been watching every TV show like Ozark. I just finished Homeland.
Oh, good for you.
The latest season of Westworld. So
I'm behind on all of these things.
Well, I'm glad you actually are in there because I am a TV person.
Oh, I love TV.
That is I even went to like Love Island UK, like everything. Everything, just throw it at me.
So I'm usually actually a very good TV watcher. It's one of my top skills in life. But
good. I'm glad. Recently. I will hold you accountable. I mean, hopefully not at the detriment of your work, but I will hold you accountable and just check in and make sure to follow you. And I will harass you on Twitter and be like, by the way, this latest episode just dropped. Heads up, I got you.
I would love that. I would love that so much.
Oh man, that's great. I can't believe it. You're like, oh my gosh, my new favorite person. And if I'm ever in your city and I'm like, I'm coming to you.
Absolutely. So. Listen, anytime you need anything, you let me know.
Appreciate it.